Hee-soo has absolutely no idea that she is actually the daughter of an ultra-wealthy family. For the past 2 years, she's been working ironically as a janitor at her own family's company. She works so hard that she literally gets a nosebleed from exhaustion, and this heartbreaking sight is accidentally witnessed by Yoon Kyung. Seeing the girl in such a pitiful state, Yoon Kyung quickly rushes over to hand her a handkerchief. When Hee-soo looks up and sees Yoon Kyung's face, she's completely stunned. She never imagined that a low-level employee like herself would ever catch the eye of someone as powerful as Yoon Kyung. Hee-soo immediately expresses her deep gratitude, but she has no clue that this caring, elegant woman is actually her biological mother. The reason they don't recognize each other dates back to a tragic fire 20 years ago. Looking at the room being swallowed by flames back then, the mother desperately wanted to charge in to save her daughter, but the child was believed to have perished in the inferno. But here is the twist. 8 years later, Yoon Kyung suddenly received a photo from an orphanage, along with a letter clearly stating that one of the girls there was her daughter. Desperate for answers, Yoon Kyung secretly contacted the orphanage director and paid her a massive sum of hush money. All she wanted was for the director to quietly help her find her child. To track down Hee-soo, Yoon Kyung organized a birthday party for underprivileged children under the company's name, even going as far as carefully preparing beautiful dresses for them. While the kids were enjoying themselves, she arranged for her staff to collect the cups they used, intending to run secret DNA tests to find the daughter she lost so many years ago. However, this secret mission was spotted by Secretary Jo. This discovery made Jo so furious that she summoned the orphanage director immediately. She angrily demanded to know who gave the director such a good job, and how she dared to act behind her back without consultation. Terrified, the director fell to her knees. She immediately confessed about the previous hush money and told Jo that she had already conducted a paternity test, and the results confirmed that Hee-soo is indeed Yoon Kyung's biological daughter. Jo was horrified by the news. She could absolutely not allow Yoon Kyung to find Hee-soo, because that fire 20 years ago? It was actually orchestrated by Jo herself. But this shocking news accidentally reached the ears of the director's own daughter, Se-jong. Se-jong was frustrated because she desperately wanted to be adopted by Yoon Kyung and become the daughter of a billionaire family. To confirm if Hee-soo was truly the one, Se-jong snuck into her mother's office at midnight to steal the DNA report. When her mother caught her, Se-jong demanded that she stay out of her way. Se-jong was determined to find a way to replace Hee-soo as Yoon Kyung's daughter. Her mother was stunned, unable to understand how her young daughter could be so cold and calculating. Just then, Jo unexpectedly appeared. After hearing Se-jong's demand, she asked the director if she was willing to help Se-jong become Yoon Kyung's daughter. The director immediately knelt on the ground and swore to Jo that as long as she could change Se-jong's fate, she would serve as Jo's slave for the rest of her life. Without hesitation, Jo secretly forged the DNA report. When Yoon Kyung received the results, she was led to believe that Se-jong was her long-lost daughter. And just like that, Se-jong stole Hee-soo's identity to become the heiress of a conglomerate, while a heartbroken Hee-soo left the orphanage. Fast forward 20 years. Se-jong is living a life of extreme luxury, while Hee-soo, with Yoon Kyung's help, has become a janitor at the company. Despite her difficult life, her romance seemed to be going smoothly. But what Hee-soo didn't know was that her fiancé was secretly seeing Se-jong behind her back the entire time. Having stolen Hee-soo's life, Se-jong eagerly expected Yoon Kyung to prepare gifts she liked, but the mother kept buying things that actually suited Hee-soo's taste instead. She guessed that Yoon Kyung might not have fully accepted her yet, but that didn't dampen her mood. She vowed to fight her way into Yoon Kyung's heart and strip everything away from Hee-soo. Now 20 years later, upon seeing Hee-soo again, Se-jong still despises her. And after learning that Hee-soo is about to get married, Se-jong becomes consumed by a deep, bitter jealousy. The confrontation heats up as Se-jong sneers at Hee-soo, asking if she used some kind of dark magic to enchant her fiancé. How else, she mocks, could a man ever fall for a girl as poor and pathetic as you? But Hee-soo doesn't back down. She fires back, saying that she and her fiancé are truly in love, and that her future mother-in-law has been nothing but kind to her. To settle the matter, she hands Se-jong a wedding invitation. But the moment Se-jong sees the groom's name, she nearly faints from the shock because she knows this man all too well. Fast forward to the day Hee-soo was supposed to meet her future mother-in-law to discuss wedding shopping. But as she walks into the private room, she is hit with a scene she never expected. Jin-ho is there, right in the middle of a blind date. Hee-soo's family is absolutely livid. They lose their temper and literally grab the mother, Gong-suk, by the hair. They scream at her, calling her the most shameless woman they've ever seen. How could she set her son up on a blind date when he's literally about to get married? But Gong-suk doesn't care. To her, Hee-soo is nothing because she grew up poor in an orphanage. She starts screaming like a maniac in the middle of the hotel, wailing about her son's pitiful fate. She cries out that he is a high-powered prosecutor, so why on earth should he have to marry a lowly janitor? Jin-ho, unable to take the chaos any longer, breaks up the fight and storms out of the hotel. But here is the kicker. Jin-ho doesn't go to Hee-soo. He runs straight to Se-jong. When Se-jong hears he's getting married, she doesn't even look sad. She knows deep down that Jin-ho's heart still belongs to her. But don't be fooled, Se-jong is playing a much bigger game. The man she actually wants is the heir to a multi-billion-dollar fortune, and get this. These two men are actually best friends. Later, Jin-ho finally remembers Hee-soo. He expects her to be furious, but instead, she's incredibly gentle. She calmly tells him she doesn't care about his past. All she wants is a stable marriage. Hearing this, Jin-ho is convinced that Hee-soo is head over heels for him. He tells her that even though he's just a junior prosecutor now, he'll work his way up to become a wealthy tycoon. He asks her to be patient with him and promises her a beautiful, warm wedding. Little does she know, this wedding is actually the beginning of her absolute nightmare. To get back at In-ha, Se-jong has been secretly seeing Jin-ho behind his back. But as the wedding approaches, she feels a pang of regret. To her, Jin-ho is like her Prince Charming. He's the perfect tool to threaten In-ha, and the perfect weapon to get revenge on Hee-soo. She doesn't want to lose someone so useful, but Jin-ho is done. He's tired of the games and just wants a normal life with Hee-soo. Hearing this, Se-jong quietly offers her blessings. But do you really think a woman this calculating would ever give up that easily? What Se-jong doesn't realize is that In-ha and Jin-ho have been close for a long time. They are basically brothers who share everything. After hearing Jin-ho's plan, In-ha gives him his sincere blessings. He warns Jin-ho that Se-jong is a total snake, and that if he wants a real marriage, he should definitely choose Hee-soo. In-ha admits that his relationship with Se-jong is just business. He's only marrying her to protect his company's reputation. Jin-ho listens to these insults and doesn't say a word. He knows In-ha is a world-class player, but he thinks his friend might actually have his best interests at heart. Finally, the wedding day arrives. Hee-soo is backstage, glowing with happiness, waiting for the most sacred moment of her life. But then, the unthinkable happens. Se-jong, the woman who stole her life and her family, appears, and she's not there to watch. She's wearing a pure white wedding dress of her own, and she is determined to burn Hee-soo's marriage to the ground. As soon as Jin-ho spots Se-jong at the wedding venue, he rushes over to her. But before he can even get a word out, Se-jong literally drags him outside, ready to help him escape right then and there. Seeing her in a wedding dress, Jin-ho is panicked. He asks if she's trying to ruin his life and turns to walk away. But Se-jong isn't letting him go that easily. She blocks his path and drops a bombshell. Sure, her methods are extreme, but she is a filthy rich heiress. If he stays with her, he can skip 30 years of struggling and hustling to get to the top. This hits Jin-ho right where it hurts. His life's dream has always been to be wealthy. After only a moment's hesitation, Jin-ho makes his choice. He leaves with Se-jong, abandoning Hee-soo while she's still inside, dreaming of her happy ending. Luckily, Hee-soo's boss, In-ha, has a soft spot. Seeing her in such a pitiful state, he decides to stay by her side. It seems In-ha is actually starting to catch feelings for this Cinderella, but there's a massive problem. In-ha is actually Se-young's fiancé. Meanwhile, Se-jong and Jin-ho have fled to a hotel. Jin-ho is a nervous wreck. He knows their secret relationship will be exposed sooner or later. He's terrified that if In-ha finds out he's still messing around with Se-jong, he'll never be able to show his face in high society again. But Se-jong is chillingly calm. She tells him she will marry him. They just need to find a way to destroy In-ha first. Since Jin-ho is a prosecutor, and In-ha's company is dirty with bribery, she suggests they just need a little push to send In-ha to prison for good. They make a pact to become the ultimate power couple at the top of the food chain. It isn't until evening that Jin-ho finally remembers the woman he left at the altar. When Hee-soo finally tracks him down, she demands to know why he's so obsessed with that girl, that he dared actually ditch his own wedding. Jin-ho just coldly plays it off, saying he's just not ready for marriage, and doesn't want to be a husband yet. Heartbroken, Hee-soo stops asking questions. She knows his heart is gone. But she has no idea that the woman who stole her man is the same Se-jong who stole her life. Yoon-kyung, who saw the two of them fleeing the wedding, tracks Se-jong down. She confronts her daughter, asking what on earth she's thinking. Why would she steal someone else's happiness when she's already engaged? Seeing that Se-jong has zero remorse, Yoon-kyung warns her to stay far away from Jin-ho. She tells her that if her fiancé finds out, she can kiss her dreams of a high society marriage goodbye. Se-jong is furious at this motherly advice. In her twisted mind, she thinks Yoon-kyung only cares because she still has feelings for Hee-soo, the girl she thought was her real daughter 20 years ago. After Se-jong leaves, Yoon-kyung calls Jin-ho to confront him. She asks if he's just trying to climb the social ladder in one move. Jin-ho stands his ground, claiming he and Se-jong are truly in love. He even reveals their dark plan. They were going to team up, destroy In-ha, and seize his multi-billion-dollar fortune. Yoon-kyung just sighs, telling him that her daughter's mind is far more dangerous and complicated than he realizes. Suddenly, Jin-ho has a moment of clarity. He starts to feel like Se-jong might be playing him. To test if she's actually serious about him, he goes to her father and asks what kind of man Se-jong actually wants to marry. Gong-suk, representing the family's pride, boastfully says that their daughter will definitely marry a top-tier tycoon like In-ha. This answer stabs Jin-ho right in the heart. He realizes Se-jong might just be using him as a pawn. In a total 180-degree turn, Jin-ho runs back to Hee-soo. Looking at the sweet girl by his side, he tells himself he must be a good husband to her. But of course, Se-jong is watching. She catches them together and chases after Jin-ho. Jin-ho snaps at her, telling her to stop harassing him because he just wants to live a good life with Hee-soo now. If you want to marry In-ha so bad, why are you still messing with me? He demands. Se-jong, absolutely livid, screams back that her engagement is just an arrangement by her parents. She claims she doesn't want to marry a man she has no feelings for, and vows that she will be breaking up with In-ha very soon. After the intense confrontation, Jin-ho drops a truth bomb on Se-jong. He tells her point blank that he doesn't want to be with her anymore, and just wants to live a quiet, normal life. When he returns to Hisu's side, she immediately asks what his relationship with Sejong really is. Jinho lies through his teeth, claiming he was just discussing work matters with a friend. Even though Hisu is deeply in love and doesn't push for more answers, she has a gut feeling that Jinho is playing her for a fool. Our Cinderella Hisu is so broke that she can barely afford a meal. To survive, this young woman takes on a humble, grueling job as a janitor. Later, Hisu decides to reach out and meets In-ha in person. Heartbroken, she pours her soul out to him about how her fiancé abandoned her at the altar. She admits she was always submissive to Jinho and can't wrap her head around why he's so obsessed with that other girl. In-ha is stunned. Even though he's never dealt with such a crazy situation, he truly feels her pain. But here is the kicker. In-ha still has no idea that the woman who stole Jinho away is actually his own fiancé. As Hisu keeps talking, her sadness grows, and she ends up drinking so much that she passes out. Worried for her safety, In-ha decides to carry her home on his back. But what he doesn't know is that Sejong is watching their every move from the shadows. When In-ha arrives at her house with her on his back, her family is absolutely speechless. They never expected a powerful man like In-ha to personally bring her home. He stays for a brief chat before leaving. But even long after he's gone, his mind is filled with images of Hisu. He starts to wonder if this strange, lingering feeling might actually be love. When Hisu finally wakes up, her young daughter encourages her to spend more time with In-ha. Even though she's just a child, she can already sense that In-ha has a huge crush on her mom. However, the peace doesn't last long. Sejong storms over to the house and demands to know what Hisu is up to, accusing her of trying to sabotage her relationship. Hisu stands her ground and explains that they were just talking as friends and that there's absolutely no private dating going on. This only makes Sejong more furious. She lunges at Hisu, grabbing her and trying to teach this low-class girl a lesson. But Hisu realizes that if she remains weak, Sejong will only get more aggressive. So she finally stands up for herself and pushes Sejong away. Right at that perfect moment, Jinho walks in. Seeing an opportunity, Sejong immediately switches into victim mode, putting on a pathetic act and even forcing out a few fake tears. Jinho falls for his hook, line, and sinker and rushes Sejong outside. Once they re-alone, Jinho passionately kisses her, truly believing that Hisu was the one bullying her. But he has no idea that Hisu has quietly followed them. Witnessing the two of them together like that, the cold truth finally hits Hisu. This manipulative woman is the exact person who destroyed her marriage. Picture this. A beautiful, wealthy young socialite struts into a high-end luxury boutique. She picks out designer outfits worth tens of thousands of dollars as if she's picking through trash. When a sales clerk politely mentions a promotion, this princess loses it. She arrogantly swings her heavy handbag directly into the clerk's face. But here is the bombshell you won't believe. This cruel heiress is actually a complete fraud. 20 years ago, she stole someone else's life and replaced them as the daughter of a billionaire family. To keep her web of lies from unraveling, Sejong comes up with a plan to become a high-profile celebrity. She's even willing to throw away love and marry a tycoon she doesn't even like just for the status. The two of them announce their upcoming marriage to the media. But this news is a total death blow to the infatuated Jinho. He literally abandoned his own wife and child to be with the manipulative Sejong, only to be discarded like garbage at the finish line. At this point, Jinho officially enters his villain era. He tells himself that even if he ends up crushed to pieces, he will have the woman he loves. Using his power as a prosecutor, he immediately leads a raid right to Yoon Kyung's doorstep. He claims an anonymous tip accused her company of illegal transactions and demands that she, the vice president, cooperate with the investigation. This cold-blooded move doesn't just infuriate Sejong, it makes Jinho's superior, Gong-suk, absolutely explode with rage. Gong-suk warns Jinho to drop the charges against his wife immediately, threatening to ruin his entire career. But Jinho isn't flinching. He knows he's the one holding all the cards now. You see, just last night, Jinho got his hands on a priceless piece of evidence, a videotape. It clearly shows the conglomerate's illegal dealings, and even more shocking, it captures the moment the company's heir was in a mysterious car accident. After watching it, Jinho is ecstatic. He doesn't care who is targeting the company. For him, this is the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card to flip the script. Next, Jinho takes the tape to In-ha's grandmother Jo, the chairman of the group. As he describes the contents, Jo's blood pressure skyrockets. She has no idea who is out to get her, but she knows she needs a fix and she needs it fast. Seeing her panic, Jinho makes a ruthless offer. He'll make the scandal go away if Yoon Kyung takes the fall for everything. And if Jo agrees to give him Sejong's hand in marriage. In the end, Jo agrees. For a woman like her, sacrificing an outsider like Yoon Kyung is a small price to pay to save the company. Jinho is stunned by how easily it worked. He thinks he's finally about to become one of the elite. But there's one thing he still doesn't know. Sejong is a total fake. She's not the real heiress. She's just a pawn in Jo's game. But then comes another twist nobody saw coming. In-ha, who was previously dead set against the marriage, suddenly insists on marrying Sejong after all. Honestly, In-ha just can't stomach the idea of Jinho winning or getting any benefits. This leaves Grandma Jo with a massive headache. She just promised Sejong to Jinho, but In-ha is her own flesh and blood. To distract him, Jo tells In-ha the dark truth about his father's car accident and warns him to watch his back because the people around him are far more dangerous than they seem. After leaving the meeting, In-ha heads straight to his father's hospital room. Looking at his father lying there in a deep coma, In-ha makes a solemn vow to find the mastermind behind the accident at any cost. But here is the twist you won't believe. The mastermind is actually Yoon-kyung. She had already predicted that Jin-ho would go to Jo, and she even anticipated that Jo would agree to Jin-ho's demands. What kind of deep-seated hatred could drive the normally gentle Yoon-kyung to despise Jo this much? Meanwhile, our Cinderella, who still has no clue she's actually a billionaire's daughter, goes to her biological mother's company to apply for a job as a fashion designer. But just as she's about to present her carefully prepared designs, she discovers something horrific. Her garments have been mysteriously ripped to shreds. Terrified that this job interview will be a total disaster, Hee-soo's eyes land on an old-fashioned sewing machine nearby. Being naturally gifted with her hands, she immediately jumps into action. Racing against the clock, she works frantically, and in just a few moments, she manages to sew several stunning dresses. Very soon, it's time for the models to hit the runway. The judges are absolutely blown away by Hee-soo's work. The vice president of the company asks her, "What is the inspiration behind this design style?" Hee-soo explains that she chose the flared skirt style specifically to give customers a feeling of being close to nature. Her designs receive unanimous praise from everyone in the room. This sends the fake daughter Sejong, who is sitting on the judging panel, into a blind rage. Seeing her lose control, In-ha quickly drags Sejong out of the room. Once they are outside, Sejong's anger only intensifies. "How can designs like those be accepted?" she screams. In-ha tells her to shut her mouth, revealing that he already knows about her dirty little secret. It turns out that the night before the competition, while In-ha was inspecting the company, he accidentally saw Sejong using a pair of scissors to destroy Hee-soo's work. In-ha confronts her, asking why she would be so cruel to a poor, struggling girl. What kind of blood feud could two people from the same orphanage possibly have? Besides, now that Sejong has become a billionaire's daughter, there's no reason for her to keep bullying Hee-soo like this. Sejong explodes with bitterness. She claims that she is actually much more pitiful than Hee-soo, and that the suffering she has endured is beyond anything an ordinary person could ever imagine. In-ha gives her a final warning. Start looking out for herself and stop throwing away her humanity for the sake of money. Sejong, who already hated the idea of marrying him, becomes even more resentful because she doesn't want to be tied to such a cold, unfeeling tycoon. When she goes back to the man she truly loves, Jin-ho, he drops a massive bombshell on her. He tells her he might actually be the heir to the entire conglomerate and is preparing to take a DNA test. In other words, Jin-ho could be Jo's grandson and the rightful owner of a multi-billion-dollar fortune. Sejong is ecstatic. She never imagined the man she actually liked would turn out to be a real-life prince. After hearing this news, Yoon-kyung takes the initiative to contact Jin-ho. She tells him to fight as hard as he can to gain control of the group, promising her full support to make him the official heir. Jin-ho admits to her that he only has a suspicion about his true identity. And sure enough, the actual DNA results come back showing that Jin-ho is not Jo's grandson. But here is where the plot gets truly dark. To complete her revenge mission, Yoon-kyung forges the DNA report and hands the positive result to Jo. When Jo sees this fake report, she is overjoyed. She's thrilled at the idea of having a powerful prosecutor as her grandson, but she has absolutely no idea that she is walking straight into Yoon-kyung's trap. The nightmare begins when Hee-soo's young daughter is involved in a horrific car accident while crossing the street. Terrified, Hee-soo rushes her to the hospital. Right in the middle of the surgery, the doctor delivers devastating news. The child has lost too much blood and needs an emergency transfusion immediately. Or she won't make it. Desperate, Hee-soo calls the father over and over, but he doesn't pick up. Just as she is about to lose all hope, Jin-ho finally shows up. Hee-soo thinks he'll step up without hesitation to save his own flesh and blood, but instead, he makes the demand so twisted it's hard to believe. He says he'll give the blood, but only on one condition. After the surgery, he's taking the child away for good. Hee-soo is absolutely shattered. The man she once loved is literally using their dying child as a hostage. Heartbroken and helpless, she falls to her knees. In that moment, she is the most powerless mother on earth, but to save her daughter's life, she has no choice but to agree to his cruel ultimatum. So why is Jin-ho so obsessed with taking the child? It turns out that not long ago, he was accepted as Jo's grandson. But to fully secure his place in that billionaire family, he has to bring his child with him. On top of that, Jo promised Jin-ho that if he brought the girl, she would let him marry Sejong. Even though it means tearing a mother and daughter apart, Jin-ho doesn't care. His only dream is to marry Sejong and become a master of the billionaire household. After the surgery, Hee-soo grips her daughter's hand, feeling like an utter failure as a mother. If it weren't for the fact that Jin-ho was the only one who could save the girl's life, she would never let him take her. At this point, she still doesn't know the real reason he wants the child is just to buy his way into high society. During their goodbye, the innocent child tells her mom she's just going to stay at that big house for a few days and will be back soon. Hearing this, Hee-soo's eyes fill with tears. She knows this goodbye might be forever. Jin-ho brings the child to Jo, who is overjoyed. She feels like the luckiest woman in the world and even prepares a luxury bedroom for the girl. But the irony is, Jo has no idea that Jin-ho isn't even her real grandson. The next morning, Jo proudly announces the happy news to the rest of the family, warning everyone not to bully the new child. But back at Hee-soo's home, the family is drowning in grief. Hee-soo's aunt, Min, can't take it anymore and goes to confront Jo. As soon as they meet, Min drops to her knees, begging Jo to let the child go. She tells Jo that Hee-soo is trapped in a dark place and can't recover without her daughter. But the cold-hearted Jo refuses without a second thought. She even threatens Min, saying that if she ever comes back to cause trouble, she'll make Heiress disappear from the face of the earth. Aggravated and emotional, Min demands an explanation. During the heated struggle, Joe accidentally pushes Min down the stairs. Seeing Min lying there unconscious, Joe stands frozen in terror. She has no idea how to cover up this crime. But what she doesn't realize is that the entire scene the moment she pushed Min was recorded on a phone by Sejong, who was watching from a distance. Sejong now has cold, hard evidence of murder. With a smirk, Sejong slowly approaches Joe. She tells her she'll pretend she never saw a thing, but there's a massive catch. She wants 90% of the company's shares. Joe is beyond furious. She never expected the weak girl she took in to become such a manipulative monster. After Joe leaves, Sejong brings in Jinho. Seeing Min unconscious on the floor, Jinho immediately wants to take her to the hospital, but Sejong stops him dead in his tracks. She tells him they absolutely cannot take her to a doctor. Then, she shows him the video of Joe pushing Min. She explains that this video is their ultimate golden ticket to blackmail Joe. If they play their cards right, they won't just get married, they'll own 90% of the entire conglomerate. As Jinho is weighing his options, Min suddenly regains consciousness. As she opens her eyes, she immediately realizes Sejong is the one behind all of this. Sejong thought Min was already dead, but seeing her awake and accusing her, Sejong loses it. She angrily pushes Min back down, but this slight push turns into a fatal accident. This time, Min is truly gone, and Sejong has officially become a murderer. To protect the woman he loves, Jinho takes Min's body to the riverbank under the cover of night and calls Joe. He tells her a chilling lie, that he was the one who killed Heiress's aunt. Joe is nearly scared to death. She only pushed Min. How could the woman have died at the hands of her own grandson? Terrified, she asks Jinho if anyone else knows. Driven by his obsession to win Sejong's heart, Jinho takes the full blame for the crime. Joe tells him to run and hide immediately, promising she'll find someone else to clean up the mess. By the time Heiress arrives, she doesn't even get to see her aunt's face one last time. She is drowning in agony, completely unaware that Sejong is the true killer. Meanwhile, Sejong thinks long and hard and decides she belongs with Jinho. The next morning, she confronts Joe and drops a bombshell. She's calling off the wedding with In-ha because she only wants to be with Jinho. Joe is livid. She can't believe a nobody like Sejong is trying to give her orders. But then, Sejong pulls out the blackmail video. As Joe watches the footage of herself pushing Min, she freezes. She realizes her tragic downfall has officially begun. At the hospital, Yoon-kyung is fighting for her life, but her daughter Sejong shows zero concern. However, when she learns that Yoon-kyung needs a kidney transplant to survive, Sejong starts to panic. She repeatedly grills the doctor, asking if a transplant is the only way. The doctor explains that a daughter's kidney is the best option because of the biological blood connection. This sends Seong into a tailspin. Since she's not the real daughter, she's terrified that a compatibility test will expose her as a fraud. She worries that if she refuses to donate, Yoon-kyung will start getting suspicious. In the midst of this, one of Yoon-kyung's loyal subordinates approaches the doctor. Even though she's just a colleague, she offers to be tested to see if she can donate her kidney to save Yoon-kyung. Sejong's assistant overhears this conversation from the hallway and rushes to tell Sejong. This news triggers Sejong's darkest fears. She knows the real daughter is Heiress, and she'll do anything to keep them from discovering the truth. To avoid the surgery and keep her secret safe, Sejong orchestrates a staged accident. She calmly walks right into the path of an oncoming motorcycle. When Yoon-kyung sees her daughter lying in a hospital bed, her heart breaks. Sejong puts on a masterful performance, crying that she wanted to donate her kidney but now she's too injured to do it. Completely fooled, Yoon-kyung decides she can't take Sejong's kidney, never suspecting that her daughter intentionally mutilated herself or that she is a total imposter. With no other options, the hospital contacts Heiress. When Yoon-kyung hears that Heiress is the one who stepped up, she is stunned. At this moment, she has no idea that this girl is actually her own flesh and blood. Overwhelmed with gratitude for the girl who saved her life, Yoon-kyung makes a shocking announcement in front of the whole family. She wants to officially adopt this poor girl Heiress. Joe is absolutely horrified by the news. She knows Heiress's face all too well. She's the one who swapped their identities 20 years ago. Joe pulls Yoon-kyung aside and demands to know if she's just trying to change Heiress's fate. Yoon-kyung calmly explains it's purely out of gratitude, with no other feelings involved. Joe doesn't say a word, still underestimating Yoon-kyung, thinking she's too weak to pull off anything big. But does Yoon-kyung really just want to adopt her? As for Sejong, the fake heiress, she doesn't panic when she hears about the adoption. Why? Because she has a new trump card. She's pregnant. When Yoon-kyung finds her, Sejong excitedly shares the news, using the pregnancy as a perfect excuse for why she couldn't undergo the transplant surgery. Yoon-kyung is so thrilled about the grandchild that she pulls Sejong into a tight hug, feeling that her own health is nothing compared to her daughter's pregnancy. To make sure her web of lies stays intact, Sejong summons her biological father, Gong-suk. She tells him she's pregnant, and that because of the baby, she can't go through with the transplant for Yoon-kyung. Hearing this, Gong-suk is so overcome with emotion that he drops to his knees right in front of Sejong. Gong-suk believes that only a daughter is the perfect biological match to save a mother. Just as he is pressuring her, Yoon-kyung steps in. Seeing her daughter's distress, Yoon-kyung warns her husband to stop bringing up the surgery to Sejong. Ba firmly declares that nothing is more important than her daughter's pregnancy. Following this, Gong-suk immediately contacts Hee-soo to present his demand. Hee-soo agrees without a second thought, but she has one non-negotiable condition. She must get her daughter back. As long as her child is returned to her, she is willing to undergo the kidney transplant for Yoon-kyung right away. In a shocking twist, our Cinderella discovers the tycoon she has been secretly in love with, In-ha, appearing to have stopped breathing. Panicked, she tries to rush him to the hospital, but the moment she picks up her phone, someone lunges from behind and stops her. It's Sejong, who coldly claims that In-ha is already dead and there's no point in trying to save him. Hee-soo is paralyzed with fear, unable to believe that Sejong could be this evil. While trying to confirm if In-ha is still alive, Hee-soo spots the necklace she had worn since she was a child, the precious memento that was the only link between her and her biological mother. Sejong immediately snatches it away, claiming the necklace belongs to her. Looking at Sejong's arrogant face, Hee-soo realizes that this piece of jewelry hides a deep secret. The villainous Sejong then admits the truth to Hee-soo. She was jealous, she wanted to steal Hee-soo's mother, and she wanted to live the life of the rich. Furious, Hee-soo demands to know who her real mother actually is. Right as they are arguing, Yoon-kyung rushes onto the scene. Sejong immediately slips into her victim role, faking a pathetic state. This enrages Yoon-kyung, who pushes Hee-soo away, refusing to let anyone bully her daughter. Then, Yoon-kyung notices In-ha lying on the ground. Worried, she calls the hospital. Once the call is over, she turns on Hee-soo, accusing her of murdering In-ha and trying to pin the blame on Sejong. Hee-soo is so terrified she doesn't even have the courage to fight back, unsure of how to face the woman standing before her. At that exact moment, In-ha's billionaire grandmother Jo arrives after hearing the news. Seeing her grandson on the ground, Jo lunges at Hee-soo, grabbing her clothes. She's ready to beat Hee-soo and have her arrested on the spot. What Jo doesn't know is that the grandson lying there was actually accidentally injured by Sejong. Sejong had even planned to quietly destroy the evidence, but Hee-soo's sudden appearance provided the perfect opportunity to frame her. Poor Hee-soo is now facing unimaginable torture. After In-ha is taken to the hospital, Yoon-kyung realizes the severity of the situation. To protect her daughter, she decides to sacrifice Hee-soo, the very woman who once donated a kidney to save her. Hee-soo is framed by the powerful billionaire family and sent to prison. As she prepares to serve her sentence, Hee-soo contacts Yoon-kyung one last time. She says she's willing to accept a fair judgment, but she leaves Ba with a chilling warning. Sejong might not be her biological daughter because the necklace representing her identity was stolen by Sejong. Hee-soo then pulls out a lock of her own hair and suggests that Yoon-kyung perform a DNA test once more. Yoon-kyung is stunned by Hee-soo's actions, feeling a sudden, sinking realization that Hee-soo might actually be her real daughter. Returning home, Yoon-kyung holds the necklace she once gave her biological child, lost in thought. Suddenly, Sejong snatches the necklace away, lying that Hee-soo had stolen it from her previously and asking how it ended up in her mother's hands. Yoon-kyung is deeply suspicious. Sejong continues her act, calling Hee-soo a manipulative girl with evil intentions who only dreams of replacing her. Even though Yoon-kyung loves Sejong dearly, the memory of Hee-soo's pitiful face haunts her. She wants to know for sure who her real daughter is. Hearing her mother's doubts, Sejong explodes in a calculated rage. She demands they do the DNA test herself, claiming she won't live a life of being wronged. After Sejong leaves, Yoon-kyung falls into deep thought, feeling a sense of guilt towards Sejong after all. They have lived together as mother and daughter for 20 years. Now, the reason the manipulative Sejong is winning this high-stakes game is because she's always 3 steps ahead. The moment Yoon-kyung sent the DNA samples to the lab, Sejong's spies reported back to her immediately. Fearing her mother would finally expose her, this cunning fake daughter went straight to Jo, the woman who originally swapped her identity. Sejong played the victim, promising to be Jo's puppet for life if she could just help her get through this crisis. Without hesitation, Jo pulled some strings and had her underling swap the DNA results. To make sure Hee-soo would never try to reach out again, Sejong arranged for Jo to visit Hee-soo in prison. When Hee-soo heard the test results were in, her heart soared. She truly believed she was about to be reunited with her mother. But what she got instead was a cold-blooded rejection. Jo looked her in the eye and lied, saying that her mother knew the truth about their blood connection but chose her wealthy lifestyle over her own daughter. Even if we went back 20 years, Jo sneered, she still would have chosen to abandon you. Hearing those words, Hee-soo broke down in tears. She couldn't believe her own mother could be so heartless, and right then and there, she vowed never to acknowledge the evil Yoon-kyung as her mother again. But what Hee-soo didn't know was that her mother was actually desperate to find the truth. Yoon-kyung personally went to pick up the report, but she was crushed when the fake results showed that Hee-soo wasn't her daughter. The kind-hearted woman was speechless with grief. Even though she thought Hee-soo wasn't hers, she still felt immense guilt for being the one who put her in prison. The day before Hee-soo was sentenced, Yoon-kyung visited her. Hee-soo hoped, just for a second, that she was there to claim her. But instead, Yoon-kyung handed her the fake DNA report. Seeing the negative result, Hee-soo assumed Yoon-kyung was simply refusing to accept her, especially since Hee-soo was convinced they were family. Yoon-kyung offered to take care of Hee-soo's child and promised a massive financial compensation for her pain and suffering once she got out of prison. Insulted by the offer, Hee-soo exploded in rage. She warned Yoon-kyung to never bother her again. Even though her life was in ruins, she didn't want a single cent from a monstrous mother. And so, a broken Hee-soo went to prison. While behind bars, she saw the news of her ex-fiancé's wedding, leaving her wondering how her life could have become such a tragedy. But there was one ray of hope. In-ha, the billionaire heir who loved her, finally showed signs of waking up. However, the doctors delivered a blow. The brain trauma had caused partial amnesia. When In-ha recovered enough, he confronted Jin-ho, demanding to know why he had ended up in the hospital. Jin-ho, being the snake he is, lied and said it was all the cunning Hee-soo's fault, and that Se-jong was the hero who saved his life. Hee-soo, thinking she was doomed to a life of misery, focused everything on getting back to her child. She became a model prisoner, hoping for an early release. In her spare time, she wrote heartbreaking letters to her daughter, asking the little girl to visit if she could. The child was overjoyed to hear from her mom. Even though she didn't understand the adult drama, she knew that In-ha was the only person who could take her to the prison, and she could sense that the handsome uncle still had feelings for her mother. Thankfully, In-ha did exactly that. The reunion was a tearjerker. The little girl cried her eyes out, wondering when her mommy would finally be free. She gave her mom a thumbs up, and told her she had to stay strong and live well. Hee-soo promised her she would. Even though she didn't know exactly who framed her, she told herself that as long as she stayed strong, she would eventually clear her name. Watching the mother and daughter together, In-ha felt like a knife was twisting in his heart. After they left the prison, he told the little girl not to be afraid. Even though his memory was fuzzy from the brain injury, he vowed that it wouldn't be long before he tracked down the person who destroyed their lives. After all, this was a man who had survived 2 months in a coma. While all this madness was happening, the woman In-ha loves, Hee-soo, was being thrown into prison for a crime she didn't commit. Even though his memory was still returning, In-ha knew deep down that the kind-hearted Hee-soo would never hurt a fly, let alone try to kill him. Soon enough, he gets his hands on the smoking gun. A surveillance video of the night he was attacked. The footage clearly shows the devious Se-jong pushing him. And even worse, his own brother standing there watching him slip into unconsciousness without lifting a finger to help. Furious, In-ha confronts Jin-ho immediately. He demands to know how Jin-ho could be so heartless as to leave him for dead. Jin-ho doesn't even try to deny it. He coldly admits that he'll do anything to become the sole heir of the conglomerate. He makes it clear that he will never allow his fiancée, Se-jong, to be branded a criminal. Jin-ho then arrogantly boasts that the chairman, Grandma Joe, now favors him over everyone else, and he warns In-ha to stay in his lane if he knows what's good for him. Next, In-ha goes to Joe to demand an explanation. But Joe is just as cold as the others. She has no intention of handing the company over to a grandson she sees as damaged goods. In-ha doesn't back down. He vows that he will find the person who framed Hee-soo and will get her justice, no matter the cost. Meanwhile, the tragedy of Yoon-kyung reaches a whole new level of cruelty. To protect her adopted daughter, she literally framed her biological daughter to take the fall. She's so blinded by Se-jong's lies that she's willing to let Hee-soo rot in a cell. When she hears that Hee-soo wants to reopen the case, Yoon-kyung goes to the prison and delivers a terrifying threat. If Hee-soo tries to clear her name, Yoon-kyung will make sure Hee-soo's young daughter doesn't survive on the outside. Hee-soo is shaken to her core by her mother's wickedness. She stands her ground and challenges Yoon-kyung to her face, but the moment she turns away, she bursts into tears. She still can't wrap her head around how her own flesh and blood could be this monstrous. In reality, Se-jong has been pulling all the strings. Realizing she was facing actual prison time for the assault, Se-jong had begged Yoon-kyung to save her, and the mother chose to make Hee-soo the sacrificial lamb. But the villain's plan starts to crumble because In-ha is back. He visits Hee-soo in prison and tells her not to be afraid. He reveals that he's not only recovered but has also gathered the evidence of Se-jong's crime. He promises to bring every single one of them to justice. Seeing the fire in his eyes, Hee-soo finally feels like her nightmare might be coming to an end. Back at the mansion, In-ha drops a bomb on the entire family. He announces that he has the evidence, and if they don't release Hee-soo immediately, he will release the video of Se-jong's attack to the world. Se-jong is paralyzed with fear. She knows she's the monster in that video. She sends Jin-ho to scout In-ha and see what he's really thinking. But Jin-ho finds In-ha more determined than ever to clear Hee-soo's name and lock up everyone responsible. Jin-ho returns to Se-jong, fuming with rage, and vows to teach the arrogant In-ha a lesson. He tells Se-jong to go to the prison and threaten Hee-soo one more time. Se-jong expects Hee-soo to beg for mercy, but she's shocked to find a woman who is no longer weak. Hee-soo stares her down and tells her it's time to surrender. Se-jong snarls back, telling Hee-soo she better watch her back, because she might just accidentally die in prison. Shortly after, In-ha visits Hee-soo again and delivers the most heartbreaking news. It was Yoon-kyung herself who put her in jail. Hearing this, Hee-soo decides she is done keeping secrets. She reveals the ultimate truth to In-ha. Se-jong is a fraud, and she, Hee-soo, is the real daughter of Yoon-kyung. In-ha is completely baffled. Why would a mother be so hell-bent on killing her own daughter? To solve the mystery once and for all, he asks Hee-soo for a sample of her hair. He's going to run a secret DNA test that will finally expose the lies and bring the real heiress home. Our poor Cinderella has no idea she is the long-lost daughter of a billionaire family. But while she's trapped behind bars, she never gets the chance to reclaim her life. Finally, after months of agonizing suffering, the day of her release arrives. But the fake heiress, Se-jong, isn't about to let her walk free. She arrogantly drives to the prison gates, knowing that once Hee-soo is out, the truth about her real mother will eventually surface. Hee-soo, determined to move on, has no clue that a deadly threat is lurking just feet away. Se-jong sits in her luxury car, her foot hovering over the gas pedal, ready to plow into Hee-soo and end her life right there. She vows that she will never let Hee-soo reunite with her mother, but at the very last second, she hesitates not out of mercy. but because she's worried about the baby she is carrying in her womb. Relieved to be free, Hee-soo hops into a taxi with high hopes for her new life. If everything goes according to plan, the truth is about to be exposed. But just as the taxi makes a turn, a massive truck comes out of nowhere and slams into them. On her very first day of freedom, poor Hee-soo is caught in a horrific car accident. Watching from a distance, Jin-ho looks on with a satisfied smirk. As Si-jong's husband, he felt he had to stop Hee-soo at any cost. But the most twisted part, Jin-ho is actually Hee-soo's ex-boyfriend. Even Si-jong, watching nearby, is shocked by Jin-ho's cold-blooded move. She never imagined he could be even more ruthless than her. Just before Hee-soo loses consciousness, a mysterious assistant sent by the villains approaches her. He delivers a chilling warning, telling her to give up on her mother forever. As Hee-soo's eyes flutter shut, she is left with a heartbreaking thought that it was Yoon Kyung, her own mother, who tried to have her killed. Meanwhile, Yoon Kyung is at home, worried sick. She tries calling Hee-soo over and over, but there's no answer. She has no idea that the daughter she's searching for is currently fighting for her life. Then, something bizarre happens. When Jin-ho goes to inspect the crash site to finish the job, he discovers that Hee-soo's injured body has mysteriously vanished. Panicked, he rushes home to tell Jo the news and insists the family must announce to the world that Hee-soo is dead. Next, Jin-ho and Si-jong confront Hee-soo's young daughter. Si-jong coldly tells the little girl, "Your mommy is dead. If you want to survive, you'd better start listening to us." The poor child bursts into tears, far too young to handle the news that her mother is gone. She flees in grief, and by the time Jin-ho finds her, she has cried herself to sleep. Clutching a photo of Hee-soo and the child, Jin-ho tells himself that even if he can't find Hee-soo, he must take care of this little girl. But Si-jong is consumed by a toxic jealousy. She realizes her husband still hasn't moved on from his ex. She corners him, screaming, "Are you still looking for her? Do you really want to raise that dead woman's child?" Jin-ho snaps back, telling her to leave the poor girl alone regardless of whether Hee-soo is dead or alive. The stress and the screaming match push Se-jong over the edge. She becomes so agitated that she begins to have complications with her pregnancy. She's rushed to the hospital, but it's too late. The doctors can't save the baby. Si-jong is devastated and loses her mind with rage, blaming this entire tragedy on Hee-soo. She vows that as long as she is breathing, she will never forgive her. When Yoon Kyung receives the news that Hee-soo is dead, she is overwhelmed with a crushing regret. She travels to where the girl used to live, clutching a photograph of Hee-soo and sobbing for the daughter she never got to save. Yoon Kyung is overcome with a strange sense of longing. Even though she still believes this girl isn't her biological daughter, the sudden loss has left a deep, lingering ache in her heart. At this moment, Yoon Kyung remains completely oblivious to the fact that Hee-soo is actually her own flesh and blood. In the blink of an eye, 3 years pass. Yoon Kyung has slowly emerged from the shadows of her grief. Not only has she become more stunning than ever, but her career has reached spectacular new heights. Under her leadership, the company's revenue is constantly breaking records. Grandma Jo is even preparing to name her as the official successor to the entire empire. But just as Yoon Kyung is at the peak of her excitement, Jo drops a bombshell. Her grandson In-ha has made a triumphant return. This is a massive blow to the ambitious Yoon Kyung. To make matters even more shocking, In-ha introduces his fiancée to the entire family. Everyone in the room freezes, their eyes nearly popping out of their heads because the elegant, high-class woman standing before them is none other than Hee-soo, who mysteriously died 3 years ago. How can a woman who was declared dead suddenly walk back into her life? Jo immediately corners In-ha, demanding to know why he's suddenly getting married and why on earth his fiancée is a woman who vanished into thin air. In-ha calmly explains that he simply crossed paths with Hee-soo while abroad, claiming there's no big secret to investigate. Yoon Kyung, however, is spiraling. She's convinced that Hee-soo's sudden return is a calculated mission. If her gut feeling is right, this girl is back to be a powerful rival for both her and her daughter. Desperate to find out what really happened 3 years ago, Yoon Kyung tracks down Hee-soo once again, hoping to squeeze some answers out of her. Hee-soo isn't playing games. She tells Yoon Kyung that her top priority is her upcoming wedding to Jo's grandson and angrily warns her never to contact her again. Hee-soo reveals her deepest wound. Even though she didn't see the face of the person who orchestrated the car crash 3 years ago, she is certain it was Yoon Kyung who tried to kill her. She tells Yoon Kyung she no longer cares if they share the same blood, even if Yoon Kyung is her real mother. It's far too late for a reconciliation. Yoon Kyung is left completely baffled. She knows for a fact she didn't plan that accident. Why is she being branded as the murderer? While she admits she once wanted Hee-soo to rot in prison, her conscience eventually kicked in, and she never actually wanted the girl dead. Hee-soo then reveals a chilling detail. Just before she lost consciousness at the crash site, a girl approached her and warned her never to try and reunite with her mother. Hearing this, Yoon Kyung is horrified because she was never even at the crime scene. Back at home, she tosses and turns, unable to wrap her head around the mystery. To uncover the truth, she manages to get her hands on the CCTV footage from the day of the accident 3 years ago. Her jaw drops when she sees her own daughter, Se-jong, sitting in a car, coldly staring at the wreckage. She immediately confronts Se-jong, demanding to know why she was at the scene. Se-jong admits the dark truth. She did want Hee-soo dead, but she claims she wasn't the one who drove the car into her. She says that because she was pregnant at the time, she chose to spare Hee-soo for the sake of her baby's safety. This leaves Yoon Kyung with a terrifying question. Who was the person who impersonated her and tried to destroy her bond with Heesoo forever? Sejong drops a bombshell on her mother, revealing that at the time of the accident, she saw Jo's private secretary at the scene. This immediately sets off alarm bells for Yoon Kyung. She realizes that Jo must have been the puppet master, arranging for her secretary to impersonate her and frame her for the hit and run. Without wasting a second, Yoon Kyung summons the secretary, Hae-dong. Under simple questioning, Hae-dong begins to panic, and Yoon Kyung instantly knows her hunch was right. Jo is up to something sinister. After their meeting, a terrified Hae-dong reports back to Jo, admitting that her identity might be compromised. To prevent any loose ends from being tied back to her, Jo orders the secretary to flee the country immediately. She wants to make sure Heesoo finds zero evidence of her involvement. Back at home, Yoon Kyung vents to her husband. She's shaken by how much Heesoo has changed the way she speaks and carries herself as unrecognizable from the girl she used to know. She's confused about what triggered this transformation and why Heesoo is so convinced she was the one who tried to kill her. Her husband tries to calm her down, assuring her that the truth will eventually come to light. But they have no idea that Heesoo is already coming for their daughter. In a total boss move, Heesoo strolls into Sejong's office and arrogantly throws a job application onto the desk. She announces that she is applying for the position of senior fashion designer. As Sejong looks on in disbelief, Heesoo reveals that she spent the last 3 years studying abroad at prestigious institutions and has the degrees to prove it. She warns Sejong to stay humble because very soon, she might just be Sejong's boss. Sejong is so furious she can barely breathe. She tries to intimidate Heesoo like she used to, but she quickly finds out that the old Heesoo is gone. The new Heesoo fights back, grabbing Sejong by the collar. She warns Sejong that she isn't just back for her company shares, she's here to reclaim her lost love. This sends Sejong into a state of pure panic. She never expected Heesoo to still be after Jinho. Next, Heesoo makes a call to Jinho. She knows he's still obsessed with her. Jinho thinks they re-meeting for a civil chat, but the second they come face to face, Heesoo slaps him hard across the face. She vows to destroy his life and career for what he did to her. But Jinho doesn't flinch. Instead, he threatens her with their daughter's life, telling her that if she wants custody, she'd better do exactly what he says. Then, in a chilling 180-degree turn, Heesoo's face softens. She gently brushes her hand against his cheek and tells him in a seductive voice that she actually hasn't forgotten their past love. Jinho is completely thrown off. He's so deluded that he actually believes she's still head over heels for him. Heesoo tells him to wait for her, saying she has something important to handle first before coming back to him with a completely new look. Her next stop is Grandma Jo. Heesoo literally drops to her knees and begs Jo to help her eliminate her #1 enemy, Yoon Kyung, the woman she believes tried to kill her. At this moment, Heesoo still has no clue that Yoon Kyung is her biological mother. Grandma Jo almost laughs out loud. There's nothing she wants to see more than a mother and daughter tearing each other apart. It's the perfect way to keep Yoon Kyung from ever taking control of the company. To fan the flames, Jo brings Heesoo directly to Yoon Kyung. Heesoo demands to know why Yoon Kyung used a messenger to threaten her at the crash site. Yoon Kyung is outraged, swearing she never sent anyone and revealing that the messenger was actually Jo's personal secretary. She suggests they confront the woman face to face, but because Jo has already sent the secretary overseas, the truth remains hidden. The massive misunderstanding between mother and daughter stays alive, and Yoon Kyung is still in the dark about Heesoo's true identity. Back at her own house, Yoon Kyung complains to her husband again. She's now certain that the wicked Jo is hiding something huge, otherwise, why would she keep making life so difficult for her? Yoon Kyung originally thought that after her daughter returned, they could finally have a deep, heart-to-heart conversation. But when she sees the miserable look on Sejong's face, she decides to hold her tongue. After looking into it, she finds out that her daughter has been fighting with her son-in-law. Yoon Kyung gives her some motherly advice, telling Sejong to try and make things work with Jinho, because after all, he's always loved her. With tears in her eyes, Sejong starts to regret even mentioning the fight to her mother. She tells herself that if Jinho just offers a simple apology, she will definitely choose to forgive him. The very next day at work, Sejong is surprised by a delivery of gorgeous flowers. When she sees the card with Jinho's name on it along with the name of a restaurant for a date tonight, she instantly forgives him and decides to give their marriage another shot. But here is what she doesn't know. Heesoo has already set her sights on Jinho. The moment the clock strikes quitting time, Heesoo beats Sejong to the punch and meets up with him first. Seeing Heesoo taking the initiative like this, Jinho decides to play along just to see what she's up to. They head to a high-end restaurant, and as fate would have it, Jinho's current wife, Sejong, is already there waiting. Heesoo doesn't just sit there, she gives Sejong the most arrogant, triumphant smirk you can imagine. Sejong feels like she is about to explode from rage. But Heesoo thinks the burn isn't deep enough yet. She reaches over and tenderly wipes some food from Jinho's mouth with her bare hand, gazing into his eyes with pure, longing desire. Sejong finally hits her breaking point. She frantically calls Jinho's phone, but he looks at the screen and ignores it completely. All he can focus on is the woman sitting right in front of him. Having no other choice, Sejong storms over to confront Heesoo, determined to teach this disobedient girl a lesson. She expects Heesoo to be intimidated, but she's shocked by how arrogant Heesoo has become. Heesoo calmly tells her, "I just wanted to have dinner with Jinho. There's no need to get this worked up." How could Sejong ever tolerate such mockery? She's about to attack Heesoo like she did in the old days. But then Jinho hears the commotion. He coldly orders Sejong to go home first, telling her that he will be the one to soothe Heesoo. After his wife leaves, Jin-ho reveals a heartbreaking secret. Because their daughter has missed Hee-soo for so long, she has actually lost the ability to speak. Even though she's been in treatment, the results have been devastatingly poor. In an instant, Hee-soo's arrogant mask shatters. Her daughter is her only weakness. Back at home, Se-young's rage reaches a fever pitch. She screams at Jin-ho, demanding to know if he still hasn't forgotten Hee-soo and if he's planning to live with her again. Jin-ho quickly tries to cover his tracks, lying that he and Hee-soo were only discussing their daughter's medical treatment and that there are no feelings involved. But do you really believe Jin-ho's intentions are that pure? Meanwhile, Hee-soo rushes to the hospital. She finds out that the recovery process for this kind of condition is incredibly slow, and the only way to speed it up is to give the child a happy childhood. Hee-soo tells herself that if she keeps up this act, Jin-ho might actually give the child back to her. To survive and build her power, she heads to her biological mother's company for a fashion design interview. When the head judge sees Hee-soo's work, she's blown away, calling her a true trendsetter and preparing to hire her on the spot. At this point, Yoon Kyung still has no idea this girl is her own daughter, but the fake daughter, Se-jong, is right there to sabotage her. She argues that Hee-soo's work is too different and doesn't fit the mass-market aesthetic, so she flat out refuses to let her into the company. Hee-soo just looks at her with pure disdain, not worried about the results at all. Suddenly, the chairman of the entire company walks in. Without giving the judges a second to think, she unilaterally announces that Hee-soo is the new head fashion designer. Everyone in the room is speechless. They can't figure out why the powerful Chairman Joe is so obsessed with this Cinderella. The second the interview is over, Yoon Kyung rushes to contact Hee-soo. Yoon Kyung finally corners Hee-soo and demands to know why she's siding with the devil herself, Joe. What kind of deep-seated grudge, she asks, could make you choose to stand beside that manipulative woman? Hee-soo's response is ice cold. She tells Yoon Kyung that during her time in prison, she never once forgot the faces of the people who wanted her dead, nor did she forget the horrific car accident she suffered the very second she was released. Yoon Kyung is devastated. She frantically tries to explain that while she originally feared Hee-soo's presence might ruin her family's future, she had absolutely nothing to do with that crash 3 years ago. She swears she's being framed and vows that if she finds the mastermind behind that accident, she'll bring them to justice personally. But Hee-soo isn't buying it. She tells Yoon Kyung to drop the pitiful act, making it clear she is no longer the naive, empathetic girl she used to be. Now, here's the background you need to know. Yoon Kyung hid the fact that she had given birth in the past just so she could marry into this ultra-wealthy family. Believing her current husband was a simple, honest man, she eventually brought the child back from the outside to live with them. For 20 years they lived as a happy family, and she thought her secret was buried forever. But suddenly, a bombshell news report goes viral online. The headline claims she has another hidden child whom she abandoned at an orphanage. Yoon Kyung loses her mind with rage. When Se-jong hears the news, she rushes to her mother and demands to know what's going on. Yoon Kyung snarls that the person who wrote the article is despicable. How could anyone claim she was pregnant before when she already has a daughter right here? Her husband, Gong-suk, soon catches wind of the scandal too. He orders his staff to find the culprit behind the leak at any cost, determined to restore his wife's honor. Little does he know, the culprit is actually his wife's biological daughter. And the daughter currently living in his house is a total fraud. Fearing the scandal will tank the company's reputation, the matriarch, Jo, calls an emergency family meeting. She demands that Yoon Kyung explain herself. Is there really another child out there? Yoon Kyung stands her ground, declaring that Se-jong is her only child. She even goes as far as to say she'll resign as vice president if they don't find the person responsible for the rumors. She has no idea that the person trying to destroy her is her own flesh and blood. After the meeting, Se-jong corners Jo, guessing that Jo was the one who leaked the story. Se-jong begs her to stop, fearing that if the investigation goes too deep, her own fake identity will be exposed and all their hard work will go down the drain. But Jo doesn't care about the real daughter. She coldly tells Se-jong that it doesn't matter who the real child is, all that matters is making Yoon Kyung lose everything and getting her kicked out of the family for good. In a state of pure panic, Yoon Kyung reaches out to Hee-soo. She suspects that Hee-soo is the one behind the leak, sensing that the girl is out for revenge. Hee-soo maintains her poker face, claiming she has no idea what's happening or who's working in the shadows to hurt Yoon Kyung. But here's the ultimate irony. Hee-soo thinks she just made up a fake rumor to mess with Yoon Kyung. She has absolutely no idea that the lie she invented is actually the 100% truth, and that she is the child who was abandoned. After Hee-soo leaves, a shaken Yoon Kyung goes back to find her husband. Seeing the look of deep suspicion on her husband's face, Yoon Kyung realizes that Gong-suk is starting to doubt her every word. Devastated, Ba vows to find the mastermind behind this mess, but the situation isn't unfolding as quickly as she hoped. However, there is a breakthrough. Yoon Kyung finally catches the hitman who tried to kill Hee-soo 3 years ago. Without saying a single word, she delivers a sharp slap across his face. The hitman, feeling wronged, confesses everything. He was taking orders directly from Jin-ho to orchestrate that accident. This news leaves Yoon Kyung baffled. Why on earth would Jin-ho want Hee-soo dead? After everyone leaves, she sinks into deep thought. She senses that someone is desperately trying to bury a secret, and she realizes there is a much deeper connection between her and Hee-soo than she ever imagined. Then, the ultimate bombshell hits. The arrogant Yoon Kyung finally realizes that Hee-soo, the girl she bullied and mistreated in 100 different ways, is actually her biological daughter. Recalling how she personally sent her own child to prison, Ba feels she can never forgive her own stupidity. Her real daughter was right in front of her the whole time, and she didn't even recognize her. Desperate for redemption, Yoon Kyung reaches out to Hee-soo. But it's too late. Hee-soo has no interest in listening to her, coldly telling Yoon Kyung that Ba doesn't deserve to be called a mother before storming away in a rage. Next, Yoon Kyung confronts Si-jong, the imposter who stole her daughter's identity. Without giving the manipulative girl a chance to explain, Yoon Kyung demands to know if she knew about Hee-soo the whole time. How could she live such a lie for 20 years? Si-jong admits she stole Hee-soo's place. Because she was jealous, she thought Hee-soo's birth status was better than her own pitiful fate. This sends Yoon Kyung over the edge, and she slaps Si-jong across the face. A person's destiny is set at birth, she screams. How could you destroy someone else's happiness for your own selfish gain? Terrified of being kicked out onto the street, Si-jong falls to her knees begging for mercy, but Yoon Kyung just ignores her and walks out. But then, Grandma Jo steps in with a devil's bargain. She warns Yoon Kyung that if Ba refuses to acknowledge Hee-soo as her daughter, she can officially become the chairman of the entire conglomerate. Meanwhile, our Cinderella finally learns the truth. She is the heiress to a billionaire family. This should have been a heartwarming reunion, but instead, Hee-soo arrives at the mansion with murder in her heart. When she walks through the door, she acts perfectly polite. Gong-suk, confused, asks his wife who this girl is. Panic-stricken, Yoon Kyung quickly shoos her husband away to speak with Hee-soo in private. Hee-soo confronts her mother immediately, demanding to know if Ba is still planning to abandon her and refuse to acknowledge her. Yoon Kyung desperately tries to explain that she had no idea what happened back then. She swears that this entire tragedy was orchestrated by Jo. If Jo hadn't swapped the DNA reports 20 years ago, she never would have mistaken Si-jong for her own child. But Hee-soo is done listening. In her mind, the damage is already done. She remains convinced that her mother is simply choosing her wealthy life over her own flesh and blood. Before Yoon Kyung can explain another word, Se-jong and Jin-ho suddenly arrive on the scene. The second they lock eyes, Se-jong aggressively demands to know why Hee-soo is lurking around her house. Hee-soo just smirks and says she's too poor and just wanted to see what a billionaire's life looks like. This comment terrifies Yoon Kyung so much that she actually drops her teacup, fearing that Hee-soo is about to spill the entire truth right then and there. Meanwhile, Gong-suk is watching this exchange, his mind racing as he recalls the rumors that his wife once had a secret daughter. Sensing that things are spinning out of control, Yoon Kyung pulls Si-jong aside. She coldly tells Si-jong to stop coming home so often, reminding her that they are no longer mother and daughter. Se-jong refuses to accept her fate and threatens Yoon Kyung, asking if she really wants her to tell her father, Gong-suk, about Hee-soo's true identity. Enraged, Yoon Kyung slaps her across the face. Right as they are screaming at each other, Gong-suk walks in. He tells them to save the fighting for another day since they have a guest. Yoon Kyung is paralyzed with fear, wondering exactly how much her husband heard. But the drama doesn't stop there. Just as Si-jong is about to storm out of the house, she catches her husband, Jin-ho, and Hee-soo being intimate with each other. Seeing them laughing and enjoying themselves, Si-jong finally snaps. She tells Hee-soo to stop seducing her husband and to stop shamelessly sabotaging their lives. Hee-soo acts like the victim, claiming she didn't do anything and that Jin-ho was the one who reached out to her. This pushes Si-jong over the edge, and she slaps Jin-ho, accusing him of still being obsessed with his ex. Just as the fight reaches a breaking point, Hee-soo's billionaire boyfriend, In-ha, arrives and takes her away. Once they are alone, In-ha asks her why she's going to her biological mother's house just to cause trouble. Hee-soo admits she's out for blood. She wants to destroy Yoon Kyung's peace and make her life a living hell, because Yoon Kyung once wanted her to die in prison. In-ha tries to settle her down, suggesting that she might have a major misunderstanding of Yoon Kyung's true intentions. Later, a desperate Yoon Kyung tracks down Grandma Jo and begs for help. She tells Jo that Hee-soo knows they are mother and daughter but still wants to kill her. She asks if there's any way to make Hee-soo believe in their bond. Jo just scoffs, saying their family drama is none of her business. Yoon Kyung realizes that the wicked Jo only cares about the company. To bridge the gap, Yoon Kyung reaches out to In-ha, asking why Hee-soo is so determined to oppose her. In-ha explains that the old, weak Hee-soo is gone now. She is purely focused on punishing everyone who ever harmed her. To help them find the truth, In-ha arranges a meeting between the two women. When Hee-soo enters the room, she's no longer screaming. She tells Yoon Kyung not to rush things. Once they find the person who actually tried to have them killed, the misunderstanding will clear itself up. In-ha promises Yoon Kyung he will help Hee-soo find the real mastermind. To dig deeper, In-ha calls a full family meeting. He announces to everyone that the mother and daughter have officially turned into enemies and have fought so bitterly they are ready to cut ties forever. Hearing this, Grandma Jo looks absolutely delighted. She tells her grandson that this is the exact result she was hoping for. Grandma Jo's plan was as twisted as they come. She wanted to weaponize Hee-soo's thirst for revenge to permanently eliminate Yoon Kyung from the company. But In-ha was one step ahead. After confirming that Jo was the mastermind, he suddenly stands up and pulls back a folding screen. Sitting right there, having heard every word, are Yoon Kyung and Hee-soo. The mother and daughter are consumed with rage as they realize that every single misunderstanding between them was carefully orchestrated by the wicked Jo. Now that the truth is out, Yoon Kyung finally faces Si-jong. She's done with the lies and the cold-blooded schemes. Yoon Kyung delivers a final, icy warning. Out of respect for the 20 years they spent together, she tells Si-young never to show her face again. If you keep pushing me, she warns, we will become enemies. Sejong bursts into tears, begging for forgiveness. Despite stealing Heesu's life for 2 decades, she claims she can't just throw away their bond. But Yoon Kyung is unmoved. She has seen the true, terrifying nature of the girl she raised and refuses to be fooled again. When Sejong returns to her office, she finds her mother-in-law waiting with a pile of health supplements. Her mother-in-law is obsessed with Sejong getting pregnant again. But Sejong is in no mood for a baby. She knows she's no longer the billionaire's daughter, and that a divorce could be served at any second. Just then, Jin-ho walks in and overhears them. He coldly demands to know when she'll be pregnant and tells her that if she doesn't want to play the part of a good wife, they should just get a divorce immediately. Sejong is fuming, unable to even defend herself. She knows her husband is only looking for an excuse to run back to Heesu, now that Heesu is the real heiress. Sure enough, Jin-ho goes straight to Yoon Kyung. With unbelievable audacity, he asks when he can remarry Heesu. Yoon Kyung doesn't even use words, she just grabs a cup of hot tea and pours it right over his head. She tells him that her daughter's happiness is in her own hands now, and if he ever dares to harass Heesu again, she won't be so polite. But Jin-ho isn't scared. He arrogantly warns her that he will soon become the chairman of the conglomerate. He threatens that if she doesn't give him Heesu, both mother and daughter might end up dead right here. Meanwhile, the billionaire heir In-ha makes a choice that shocks everyone. He gives up his entire inheritance for love. He officially cuts ties with his wicked grandmother, Jo. Even though he's walking away from a life of extreme luxury, In-ha feels a sense of peace he's never known. He realizes that if he stays in that house of vipers, he might eventually become just as monstrous as Jo. After In-ha leaves, Jo immediately orders her staff to freeze all of his bank accounts. In her mind, her spoiled grandson will come crawling back in a matter of days when the money runs out, but In-ha is done with her. To survive, he goes to his girlfriend, Heesu, knowing she's the only person who can help him. Before long, the two of them are living together under one roof, and their relationship moves at a lightning-fast speed. After surviving so many storms, this couple is finally ready to open their hearts to one another. But just as things are getting serious, there's a frantic pounding at the door. Heesu opens it only to find her toxic ex-boyfriend standing there. Jin-ho looks at them with pure disgust and sneers, "You two really have no shame, do you? Living together before you even married?" In-ha loses his temper and gives Jin-ho a final warning, "Stay away from them." But Jin-ho isn't backing down. He looks In-ha in the eye and declares that he will personally destroy Heesu's happiness. This is the last straw for In-ha, who levels Jin-ho with a massive punch. He knows that if he doesn't teach this scumbag a lesson now, Jin-ho will keep crawling back to cause trouble. Once the drama settles, Heesu opens up about her secret fears. She tells In-ha that her rise within the company hasn't been as smooth as it looks. To truly take down the wicked Grandma Jo, she needs to prove her worth by skyrocketing the company's sales. In the fashion world, that means one thing: creating a blockbuster must have product. Even though she's stressed, the look in her eyes says she's already cooking up a perfect plan. The next morning, Heesu and In-ha head out to pick up his mother, who just happens to be the top-tier fashion talent their design department desperately needs. They hope for a smooth partnership, but they don't realize that Heesu's arch-nemesis is already watching them like a hawk. You have to wonder, when will this manipulative snake finally get what's coming to her? Meanwhile, a woman named Soon Young is ready to drop tens of thousands of dollars at a luxury boutique, but her shopping spree hits a snag when she realizes the limited edition dress she wanted is already being worn by someone else. Being the arrogant socialite she is, Soon Young mocks the other woman, calling her low class and saying she doesn't deserve such an expensive gown. But she picked the wrong fight. The other woman is Yoon Kyung, another billionaire powerhouse, who calmly tells the clerk she's willing to pay double the price just to take the dress. This absolutely enrages Soon Young. In a fit of petty rage, she actually reaches out and rips the shoulder strap of the dress, but Yoon Kyung's countermove is even more savage. She takes the ruined dress and throws it on the floor in front of everyone, proving that if she can't wear it, she'll just destroy it. This public provocation turns them into instant enemies. Here is the twist. Soon Young is actually a major shareholder in Yoon Kyung's company, worth billions, and she's also Heesu's future mother-in-law. On the other side, Yoon Kyung is currently the number 2 person in the company, and her job depends on designing a viral fashion hit. The company is desperate for a high-end designer to save them from a slump. When Yoon Kyung hears that a world-renowned designer has returned from abroad, she rushes to meet them. To her horror, the expert she's been waiting for is none other than Soon Young, the woman she just had the boutique brawl with. Yoon Kyung asks if she's the legendary designer they've been looking for. Soon Jung hands over her business card and coldly explains that while she isn't the designer herself, she is the designer's exclusive representative. Before leaving, she mentions they are planning a massive fashion show. Sejong, sensing an opportunity to backstab her mother, immediately tries to suck up to Soon Jung. She wants to prove that she can survive and thrive without Yoon Kyung's protection, especially now that Yoon Kyung knows she is a fake. Sejong reports everything to Grandma Jo, who starts to feel a sense of dread. Jo has a gut feeling that Soon Jung is plotting something big. But the real shocker? While the villains are worrying, Soon Young has already made her move. She's currently at Heesu's house, and the two of them are getting along perfectly, forming a secret alliance that no one saw coming. It turns out that after the horrific car accident 3 years ago, In-ha saved Heesu and secretly whisked her away to another country. During her darkest days abroad, she met Soon Jung. This is exactly why Soon Young reached out to Heesu first upon their return. But through Soon Young, Heesu learns the real reason for her homecoming. She's on a mission to find the person who murdered her husband. Based on her own investigation, Soon-young is almost certain that Grandma Jo is the killer. When In-ha hears this, he immediately explodes in anger. He argues that while his grandmother is definitely a ruthless woman, she would never go as far as to murder his father for profit. Originally, out of respect for Hee-soo, Soon-young was open to collaborating with Yoon-kyung. But after hearing In-ha's defense, Soon-young starts to have second thoughts. She begins to suspect that Yoon-kyung might actually be the killer, viewing her as someone who only cares about her own interests. Meanwhile, we have a heartbreaking dynamic. Hee-soo knows that the woman who abandoned her over 20 years ago is standing right in front of her, but she refuses to acknowledge her. Even though they work in the same company, they live like total strangers. As they are leaving one day, Yoon-kyung tries to show a mother's concern, telling Hee-soo to bundle up and wear more clothes, but Hee-soo coldly pushes her away. After her daughter walks off, Yoon-kyung is left lost in thought, agonizing over why Hee-soo still won't accept her. But here is the truth. Hee-soo is distancing herself because she's afraid her feelings for Yoon-kyung will ruin her revenge plan. She's terrified that if she lets her emotions take over, it will cloud her judgment. Her ultimate targets are Grandma Jo, who kept her and her mother apart for 20 years, and the manipulative Sejong, who stole her identity. Currently, the company's sales are in a slump, and what Jo wants more than anything is to revive the design department. As luck would have it, Hee-soo's future mother-in-law is the representative of a world-famous designer. Despite her anger, Hee-soo decides to help her biological mother. She plans to help Yoon-kyung win the partnership with the designer first, which will also give Hee-soo the leverage she needs to strike back at Jo. Hee-soo brings her future mother-in-law to meet Yoon-kyung. Thrilled that Hee-soo reached out, Yoon-kyung prepares a massive feast of gourmet food, but Soon-jung doesn't even spare it a glance. Instead, she asks Hee-soo to make her something simple. Before long, Hee-soo brings out a bowl of steaming hot noodles. Even though it's just a basic meal, Hee-soo and Soon-young eat happily together, laughing and talking. Watching them, Yoon-kyung feels like a needle is being driven into her heart. She can't help but think that if she hadn't lost Hee-soo 20 years ago, she would be the one sharing that happy moment. In a desperate attempt to secure the partnership, Yoon-kyung drinks heavily with Soon-young. But every time she raises her glass, they completely ignore her. The group stays there until late into the night. Finally, unable to suppress her longing, Yoon-kyung pathetically begs Hee-soo for a shred of pity. She cries that she never intended to abandon her, and that there are deep secrets behind what happened, secrets Hee-soo knows nothing about. Hee-soo finally opens up, confessing that she too wanted to be like other children with a mother by her side, experiencing unconditional love. But the moment the words leave her mouth, she walks away, refusing to dwell on the painful past any longer. After Hee-soo leaves, Yoon-kyung collapses in tears. She makes a solemn vow to destroy the wicked Jo. She knows that if Jo hadn't swapped Hee-soo away in the first place, her daughter would never have grown to hate her this much. The next morning, Yoon-kyung gathers everyone for a high-stakes meeting to find out which side Soon-young will choose to partner with. But Soon-jung keeps them hanging, stating that the legendary designer gave her strict orders not to give an answer until the upcoming fashion show is over. Hearing that the decision is delayed, Sejong fumes and storms back to her office. She's obsessed with winning this partnership, believing it's her ticket to securing more company shares. But here is the kicker. This manipulative snake has no clue that the world-class designer she's been dreaming about day and night is actually Hee-soo. Later, the fake heiress slinks into Yoon-kyung's office. She starts greedily stroking Yoon-kyung's luxury items, her mind spinning with a bold, dark plan. 20 years ago, she successfully swapped lives to become the daughter of a billionaire family. And even though her secret identity has been exposed, she's deluded enough to believe she can kick Yoon-kyung out and take over as vice president. She even fantasizes about how she'll torture the real mother and daughter once she reaches the top. Right at that moment, Yoon-kyung walks in. A startled Sejong jumps up and tries to fake a sentimental "I missed you, mom" act. But Yoon-kyung isn't having it. She coldly orders Sejong to get out of her office immediately and warns her to stop harassing her. She tells her that if she wants any chance at a future, she should vanish from her sight. This rejection cuts deep into Sejong's heart. She can't wrap her head around how Yoon-kyung could be so heartless after they lived together for 20 years. Fuming with rage, Sejong vows that once she succeeds, she will personally destroy both Hee-soo and Yoon-kyung. But what Sejong doesn't realize is that the real heiress, Hee-soo, has already launched her revenge mission, and she has been making surprise appearances in the office of Sejong's husband. Sejong happens to drop by to discuss a plan against the mother-daughter duo, only to find Hee-soo and Jin-ho in a very intimate moment. Sejong explodes, accusing Hee-soo of trying to wreck her marriage. Jin-ho, fed up with the constant screaming, tells Sejong to stop clinging to him. He's completely done with their high-stress marriage. In reality, he's grown to despise Sejong because he knows that staying with the fake heiress leads to a dead-end future. To bring the man she once loved to total ruin, Hee-soo invites Jin-ho over to her place. The deluded Jin-ho actually thinks Hee-soo is still carrying a torch for him. Looking into her seemingly affectionate eyes, he doesn't think twice and leans in for a kiss. But just as he's about to touch her, Hee-soo shoves him away. She tells him she has a shocking video he needs to see. Jin-ho takes the phone and freezes in horror. The video clearly shows him destroying evidence of his own crime. This unexpected evidence sends him into a state of pure panic. He knows his secret murder is about to be exposed. Reverting to his manipulative ways, he lunges forward and hugs Hee-soo, gazes into her eyes with fake devotion, and promises that if she keeps his secret, he will dump Sejong for her in a heartbeat. But ask yourself this. After everything he's done, do you really think Hee-soo would ever want to be with a monster like Jin-ho again? When Jin-ho returns home, he doesn't waste any time with pleasantries. He looks Sejong in the eye and tells her to pack her things and get out. He says he has no room for useless people by his side anymore. Hearing this, Sejong breaks down in tears. She never imagined that the husband she loves so deeply could be this heartless, a man who would throw everything away just for his own gain. She thinks back to when Jin-ho was just a poor guy. She never looked down on his humble beginnings, but now, the second he sees a path to more money and power, he's ready to dump her. Consumed by rage, Sejong vows that even if she has to go down with him, she will destroy this ungrateful man. The nightmare is far from over for the evil girl who stole a billionaire's life. She thought she had covered her tracks perfectly, but now that her fake identity has been exposed, her life has turned into a never-ending cycle of torment. The moment the real heiress, Hee-soo, is officially named the head designer, she marches straight to Sejong's office. She coldly orders Sejong to clear out immediately, stating that such a luxurious space is reserved only for high-status professionals. Sejong tries to argue, saying she's worked there for years, but Hee-soo doesn't care. Realizing she's powerless against the new head designer, Sejong reluctantly agrees to move. But as she is leaving, Hee-soo drops a final insult. "When you are done moving your stuff, make sure you clean the office." This cuts Sejong to the bone, having been pampered her whole life. She's never had to clean a day in her life. The next morning, Hee-soo shows up looking absolutely stunning in a high-fashion outfit. When she sees that Sejong still hasn't finished moving, she snaps, asking if Sejong plans on squatting there forever. Sejong tries to explain that she needs time to pack, but she's hit with a shocking surprise. Hee-soo has assigned her a tiny desk in the open-plan office, surrounded by dozens of other employees. Once Sejong is settled in her new, humble spot, Hee-soo mocks her in front of everyone, saying a person with zero talent doesn't deserve the luxury of a private office. Livid and humiliated, Sejong runs to Yoon-kyung, hoping for a shred of sympathy or a better office. But Yoon-kyung is like ice. She tells Sejong, "Don't you dare call me mom ever again," and tells her flat out that if she is unhappy with her new desk, she's more than welcome to resign. Sejong is devastated, unable to understand why the mother who raised her now looks at her with such pure hatred. As she leaves the office, she runs into Hee-soo's billionaire boyfriend, In-ha. Instead of showing any pity for her pathetic state, he sarcastically tells her to work hard, suggesting that maybe one day she'll earn a promotion. By the time the workday ends, Sejong is drowning in unfinished tasks and is forced to work overtime deep into the night. While she's sitting there alone, Hee-soo stops by and mocks her commendable work ethic. By the time everyone else has gone home, Sejong is at her breaking point. As a woman in her 30s who has always lived in luxury, she can't handle this kind of physical and emotional suffering. In the silence of the empty office, she makes a dark vow. The second she gets an opening, she is going to teach the arrogant Hee-soo a lesson she will never forget. To destroy the man she once loved, Hee-soo takes a calculated risk and reaches out to her married ex-boyfriend Jin-ho. Even though the very sight of him makes her skin crawl, our Cinderella is willing to use her beauty as a weapon to ensure this ungrateful man hits rock bottom. Seeing the affectionate look in her eyes, Jin-ho falls for it hook, line, and sinker. He grips her hand and swears that if she'll just take him back, he'll dump the wicked Sejong in a heartbeat. But Hee-soo isn't falling for his sweet talk anymore. She demands he make some real, practical moves to prove himself, otherwise he can forget about ever contacting her again. But do you really think Hee-soo actually wants to be with a snake like Jin-ho? Later that night, Jin-ho goes home and puts on a show, cooking a lavish, gourmet dinner for Sejong. After taking a bite, she is touched, thinking she is married to the perfect husband. But before she can even take a second bite, he drops a shameless bombshell. Jin-ho admits that he committed a murder, and get this, he wants Sejong to go to prison and take the fall for him. To manipulate her, he promises that once she's behind bars, he'll do whatever it takes to get her out. Sejong is so livid, she literally flips the table, sending food flying everywhere. She screams at him, refusing to be his sacrificial lamb. She knows his real game. Once she's locked up, Jin-ho will run straight back to Hee-soo and marry her. But the arrogant Jin-ho doesn't care what she thinks. He loses his patience and delivers a chilling ultimatum. If Sejong isn't at his office by 10 a.m. tomorrow, their marriage is over. The 10 a.m. deadline comes and goes, but Sejong is nowhere to be found. Instead, she's at the mansion of Grandma Jo, Jin-ho's billionaire grandmother. She pathetically begs Jo for help, crying that she doesn't want to rot in a cell. She reminds Jo of how devoted she has been to the family and begs her to find another scapegoat for Jin-ho's crime. But Jo is ice cold. She slaps Sejong across the face and demands to know why she won't just sacrifice herself for her grandson. Thinking fast, Sejong tells Jo to really think about what happened. The victim was taken to the hospital alive, but then died mysteriously a while later. She suggests that someone is trying to frame her. Jo's expression shifts. She actually listens this time and promises Sejong that she will find the real killer. Why the sudden change of heart? Because the man who died was Jo's own son. With Jo's promise backing her up, Sejong voluntarily walks into the interrogation room. And who is the prosecutor waiting for her? Her own husband, Jin-ho. He interrogates her, asking why she would kill someone she didn't even know. Faced with his suspicion, Sejong drops a riddle. She admits she had a motive to kill him, but she swears she isn't the actual killer. This nonsensical answer drives Jin-ho absolutely insane. He can feel the pressure mounting. After the session, Jin-ho goes to Grandma Jo, baffled as to why Sejong confessed but won't admit to the actual murder. Jo reveals that she's the one directing this entire drama. She tells Jin-ho that if he can find the person who actually murdered her son, she will use her power to make him the deputy chief prosecutor. Hearing Jo's promise, Jin-ho practically wants to burst out laughing. In his mind, he's about to get a massive promotion and finally be free to remarry Hee-soo. Jin-ho visits Sejong behind bars. He doesn't bring comfort, he brings a divorce agreement. He coldly tells her that if she signs the papers, he'll find a way to get her out of prison. It's a ruthless move, trading her freedom for his legal separation. Once she's out, the fallen princess Sejong desperately tracks down Yoon Kyung. But Yoon Kyung isn't happy to see her and warns her never to step foot in her house again. Seeing her mother's cold shoulder, Sejong puts on a pathetic performance. She cries that she hasn't eaten a single thing all day, begging for just one last meal. Even though Yoon Kyung wants nothing to do with her, she can't completely erase 20 years of history, so she prepares a full meal for the girl. As she leaves, Sejong grabs Yoon Kyung's hand, pleading for forgiveness for her childish mistakes, claiming she never meant to hide the truth. But Yoon Kyung has seen through her manipulative nature. She tells Sejong once and for all, "Stop harassing me." But do you think a snake like Sejong would ever really let go? In reality, her life is a total disaster, far worse than anyone could imagine. Not only did Hee-soo steal her job as the head of fashion design, but even the husband she stole from Hee-soo has now divorced her. Talk about karma coming back around. Sejong is consumed by a bitter, burning rage. The next day at work, she corners Yoon Kyung again, crying about how her life fell apart overnight and demanding to know why Yoon Kyung won't just adopt her for real. Yoon Kyung's answer is a reality check. She admits her past love was twisted. She was so blinded by her own selfish desires that she abandoned her innate goodness. She tells Sejong to leave, to forget they were ever mother and daughter. This final rejection breaks Sejong completely. She starts screaming like a maniac in the hallway about how unfair her fate is. But wait, it gets even worse. When she gets home, her mother-in-law orders her to pack her bags and get out immediately. She even pulls out the land ownership contracts to prove she is the sole owner of the house. With nowhere left to go, Sejong heads to a luxury hotel to book a room, but the clerk delivers a humiliating blow. Her credit card has insufficient funds. Before she can even process the shock, the clerk tells her that Grandma Jo, the billionaire matriarch, personally ordered that she be blacklisted from every hotel. At that moment, Sejong realizes the entire world is turned against her. And just when she thinks it can't get any lower, she steps outside and a thief snatches her bag. Totally broke and homeless, she's forced to sit alone on the dirty sidewalk, shivering in the cold. When she finally slinks back to the house, her mother-in-law is already asleep. Starving and freezing, Sejong's mind fills with toxic thoughts. She convinces herself that if the real daughter hadn't returned, Yoon Kyung would have never exposed her, and she'd still be living in luxury. Driven by pure hate, she confronts Hee-soo the next day to settle the score. But she quickly finds out that the weak Hee-soo is long gone. Hee-soo stares her down and delivers a chilling warning. "This is just the beginning. I'm going to make you feel a kind of pain you've never even dreamed of." Having lost the fight, Sejong runs to Grandma Jo. She's desperate to find out where Jin-ho is, knowing Jo must be hiding him. But Jo treats her like garbage, refusing to reveal his location and telling her to beat it. "Our family," Jo snarls, "has no use for someone as worthless as you." Just as Sejong thinks her world has completely ended, Jin-ho finally returns, and his eyes are burning with pure rage. The couple shares a deeply romantic moment, sliding the diamond rings onto each other's fingers. It looks like they are just steps away from the altar. She tells him to get his head in the game as a man trying to climb the billionaire social ladder. He can't let his emotions take over. She drops a crucial bit of info. Hee-soo is now the company's largest shareholder. If he wants to get Hee-soo back, he has to get his hands on those shares first. A look of greedy satisfaction crosses Jin-ho's face. This ambitious man is still clearly obsessed with his ex. But Sejong is determined to burn their happiness to the ground. She contacts Yoon Kyung, the woman she spent 20 years pretending was her mother. In a twisted confession, Sejong admits that even though she's not the biological daughter, she feels like she's lost her mother's love. She bluntly tells Yoon Kyung that she refuses to let Hee-soo live a better life than her, and she'll do anything to stop Hee-soo from marrying into wealth. Yoon Kyung finally hits her breaking point. She's disgusted by how warped and toxic Sejong's heart has become and orders her to get out of her sight immediately. But Sejong isn't done. She slinks out of the office and tracks down Gong-suk. She pathetically begs him to let her stay, playing on the 20 years they lived as father and daughter. She's desperate for just a shred of his concern, but Gong-suk is as cold as ice. He's ready to discard her just like Yoon Kyung did. He makes a chilling, nearly impossible offer. He hands her a strand of his hair and tells her to go get a DNA test. He says if there's even a 50% match, he'll keep supporting her. This impossible condition is Sejong's last straw to clutch at. But the results come back exactly as expected, a 0% match. They share no blood whatsoever. This means Sejong has officially lost her last right to live in her old home. She has been completely erased from the family. But instead of feeling remorse, the manipulative girl goes completely insane. She pins the entire blame on Hee-soo. In her twisted mind, if Hee-soo hadn't returned, she'd still be the beloved princess of the billionaire household. Now, she has a broke, lonely nobody with no one left to care if she lives or dies. Sejong has absolutely no clue that her husband Jin-ho is playing a dangerous double game. Behind her back, he's already bought a diamond ring and secretly lured Hee-soo to a restaurant. The moment they meet, he pulls out a massive 10-carat diamond ring and makes her a tempting offer. If she leaves In-ha, he'll hand over a significant portion of his company shares. Faced with such a life-changing bribe, Hee-soo actually hesitates for a moment. But what she doesn't realize is that In-ha has been watching the whole thing from a distance. Heartbroken and panicked, In-ha rushes toward them, but Jin-ho is so arrogant that he doesn't even care. Hee-soo walks out and begs In-ha not to misunderstand. She claims she only went there to negotiate for the custody of her daughter, but then Jin-ho caught her off guard with this bizarre proposal. In-ha, still fueled by rage and confusion, can't even process her explanation before Jin-ho storms out of the restaurant, and without saying a word, punches In-ha right in the face. In-ha tries to fight back, but Jin-ho's thugs quickly hold him down. Jin-ho stands over him with sickening arrogance, reminding In-ha that he is now the chairman of the conglomerate. "If you want to be my enemy," he sneers, "I am always ready." Livid, In-ha vows that once he finds an opening, he will teach this lowlife a lesson he'll never forget. Back at home, Hee-soo tenderly bandages her boyfriend's wounds. She insists that she cut ties with Jin-ho a long time ago, and that her only goal now is to take back the company that belongs to her. In-ha is still skeptical. He can't wrap his head around why she would even listen to Jin-ho's proposal. Then, Hee-soo drops a bombshell. Grandma Jo had approached her earlier. Jo told her that since she and Jin-ho already have a daughter together, they should remarry. If she agrees, Jo promised to give Hee-soo the chairman position currently held by Jin-ho. Desperate to be with her daughter and to secure the empire, Hee-soo went to the meeting in secret. In-ha sighs, telling Hee-soo she's being incredibly naive. He explains Jo's real play. She wants them married so that Yoon-kyung will lose her motivation to fight for the company, eventually leaving everything in Jin-ho's lap. Seeing the sorrow on Hee-soo's face, In-ha promises he's ready to raise her daughter as his own and spend the rest of his life with her. But Hee-soo shakes her head, crying that her daughter only recognizes Jin-ho as her father. In-ha begs her to consider his feelings, arguing that the child is still young and will eventually understand her mother's struggle. This heartfelt plea finally starts to crack the walls around Hee-soo's heart. The next day at work, Hee-soo is still lost in thought over In-ha's advice. Suddenly, Jin-ho's wife, Si-jong, storms into the office in a jealous rage. She screams that Hee-soo is trying to steal her beloved husband. The screaming match gets so loud it attracts Hee-soo's mother, Yoon-kyung. Si-jong has lost all fear and yells at Hee-soo to stop harassing Jin-ho. That's the final straw. Hee-soo steps up and delivers a powerful slap right to Si-jong's face. She tells Se-jong to go ask her precious husband who's really chasing who, because he's the one shamelessly clinging to her like a parasite. Yoon-kyung, feeling like the slap wasn't enough, steps in and shoves Se-jong with all her might. Se-jong is knocked to the floor. Finally stunned into silence, Se-jong finally realizes that she is truly pathetic. Her mother has completely cast her out, and she is forced to leave in a state of deep sorrow. But don't think for a second that this manipulative woman is going to fade away quietly. She makes a dark, bitter vow to personally destroy both Hee-soo and Yoon-kyung. Meanwhile, a scene of pure horror unfolds. A woman is seen wandering toward a rooftop in a state of total panic. Everything around her has become a blur of painful memories. At the very moment she prepares to jump, she catches sight of her son running toward her and offers a haunting smile, but her body gives way, and she plummets from the edge. In-ha is paralyzed with shock, unable to understand why his mother would choose to end her life. By the time he reaches the ground, his mother is barely clinging to life. Consumed by agony, he has no idea how he can go on living. Here is the most tragic part. Today was supposed to be In-ha's wedding day. He was waiting in pure joy for his mother to arrive, only to have a staff member tell him that a woman who looked like his mother was wandering the roof, seemingly suicidal. By the time he got there, he couldn't stop her. After a massive funeral, In-ha finally snaps out of his fog. He has a gut feeling that someone else drove his mother to her death. But you won't believe who the real killer is. Soon, a clue surfaces. His staff informs him that right before she died, Soon Young ate a bowl of porridge. Yoon-kyung immediately realizes that this porridge could be the smoking gun. To uncover the truth, she calls In-ha and suggests an autopsy to see if anything was slipped into his mother's food. Despite his deep respect for his mother's body, In-ha agrees so he can catch the killer. He vows to bring the mastermind to justice. What he doesn't suspect is that the person who killed his mother is Jin-ho. Jin-ho didn't want In-ha and Hee-soo to get married, so he spiked the porridge with a substance designed to cause intense hallucinations. He never intended for it to be fatal, but his stupid, reckless act ended in a literal death. Jin-ho, showing zero remorse, goes straight to Grandma Jo. She's still in the dark and asks if he was the one who killed Soon-jung. Jin-ho arrogantly replies, "So what if I did? I have you to back me up, don't I?" Jo is actually stunned. She realizes Jin-ho is just like her, with a heart of ice. But the walls are closing in. In-ha discovers the truth about Jin-ho's involvement and decides to expose everything at a high-profile press conference for the company's new product launch. But the body count isn't over. The wicked Grandma Jo is now living in a nursing home, thinking she'll spend her final days in peace. But when her grandson Jin-ho comes to visit, he hands her a cup that is laced with deadly poison. Jo has no idea what's happening. After drinking it, she collapses in excruciating pain, begging her grandson to save her. But Jin-ho doesn't feel a shred of guilt. He simply turns his back and walks away while she struggles for her last breath. Why did he do it? Because Jo found out he was a total fraud and not the real grandson. To clear his path to the inheritance, he murdered her in cold blood. By the time the real grandson, In-ha, rushes into the room, Jo is already gone. In-ha is left holding her cold body, screaming her name in a room filled with nothing but silence and betrayal. Even though Grandma Jo was a ruthless woman, In-ha is absolutely devastated by her sudden death. It's a loss he just can't process. But of course, the villain Jin-ho is already at the hospital, immediately slipping into his role. He puts on an Oscar-worthy performance of grief, wailing for the cameras. But in reality, this fake grandson doesn't shed a single real tear. Soon after, the family holds a massive, high-profile funeral for Jo. As Jin-ho stares at her casket, he finally feels a sense of relief. He thinks his plan has worked perfectly, and that he is about to help his wife inherit Jo's entire fortune. Here's the secret. Before she was hospitalized, Jo did find out that Jin-ho was an imposter. To protect her family's wealth from him, she had officially named Si-jong as the chairman. What Jo never expected was that Jin-ho's greed would drive him to murder her in cold blood. Once the memorial service ends, Jin-ho corners Si-jong and whispers the truth. He confesses that he poisoned Jo and that they will soon be in control of her multi-billion-dollar estate. Si-jong actually praises him, calling him decisive for taking such a bold step. But they are making a fatal mistake. They have no idea that Yoon Kyung has hidden a listening device in the room and is recording every single word of their confession. Yoon Kyung hasn't gone to the police yet. She wants this heartless couple to suffer even more before she drops the hammer. She takes the recording to In-ha and tells him the full extent of Jin-ho's crimes. In-ha is paralyzed with shock. He can't believe a human being could be this monstrous. Yoon Kyung warns him to keep quiet for now, as they still need more leverage to ensure Jin-ho stays behind bars forever. But karma comes for Jin-ho faster than he expected, and it comes from inside his own house. Si-jong, wanting to keep Jo's entire inheritance for herself, goes behind Jin-ho's back and tells Yoon Kyung everything about his murderous deeds. Jin-ho thought they were partners in crime, two grasshoppers on the same string, but he realized too late that Si-jong is even more cold-blooded than he is. It looks like a prison cell is the only thing waiting for him now. Meanwhile, there's an innocent victim caught in the crossfire, Jin-ho's young daughter. On her very first day of kindergarten, the little girl finds herself completely alone. None of the other children will play with her because they all whispering that her father is a murderer. When she tries to tell her teacher, she overhears the other parents gossiping, demanding that she be kicked out of the school. They don't want their kids anywhere near a killer's daughter. The poor child hears everything. She screams at the top of her lungs, "My daddy is a good person," before running away in tears. When she gets home, her grandmother asks why she left school early. The girl sobs that the other kids hate her because of her dad. Her grandmother Gong-suk is speechless because she knows it's the truth. It turns out that Hee-soo had gone on a live stream to tell the entire country that Jin-ho is a killer who refuses to admit his crimes. Now that the whole world knows, his own daughter is a social outcast. Driven by rage and wanting justice for her grandchild, Gong-suk tracks down Hee-soo. She screams at her, calling her evil for framing Jin-ho and ruining his life. Hee-soo warns Gong-suk that every word she said in the live stream was the absolute truth. She tells her that if she has even a shred of conscience left, she should report her son's crimes. Gong-suk, desperate to protect her son, cries out that even if Jin-ho is a killer, they shouldn't drag his innocent daughter into this mess. But Hee-soo isn't backing down. She firmly tells Gong-suk that the child deserves to know the truth. They can't just coddle and protect a murderer just because he's a father. Gong-suk, blinded by her love for her son, refuses to listen, still clinging to the delusion that Jin-ho is being framed. When Jin-ho returns home from work, he finds his daughter drowning in sadness. In a clumsy attempt to cheer her up, he promises to personally drive her to school the next day. But this only makes the little girl explode in anger. She screams at him, telling him never to show his face at her school again because his presence only makes the other kids hate her more. She storms off into her room, leaving Jin-ho in a state of shock. At that moment, he finally realizes that if he doesn't change, he will lose his daughter forever. The billionaire heir who committed so many crimes finally hits his breaking point. To stop his daughter from hating him, he decides there's only one way out to leave this world. He climbs to a rooftop, ready to end it all. But just as he's about to jump, his daughter rushes to the roof. She screams in desperation, begging him to stop, telling him that if he leaves her, she doesn't want to live either. Jin-ho was ready to die, but he can't bear to leave his daughter behind. He collapses to his knees, sobbing. He realizes that the only way he can truly be her father again is to face the music and accept a fair judgment for his sins. He had murdered his billionaire grandmother to secure an inheritance, and out of fear, he almost took his own life. But because of his daughter, he chooses to face his mistakes. Shortly after, Jin-ho is arrested and sent to prison. Before he begins his long sentence, Hee-soo visits him and hands him a photograph of their daughter. She tells him to reform himself and work hard in prison, saying that maybe, just maybe, in 20 years when he is released, his daughter might call him dad again. Looking at the photo, Jin-ho remembers the warm, happy times they once shared. He realizes that if it wasn't for his own greed, they would still have that beautiful life. He vows that after he pays his debt to society, he will truly become a good father. Meanwhile, justice has been served. Hee-soo officially takes her place as the chairman of the conglomerate, with her mother Yoon Kyung proudly by her side. After surviving a lifetime of agony, the real mother and daughter have finally reclaimed what was rightfully theirs. Everything is finally moving in the right direction. Back at home, Yoon Kyung has a heart-to-heart with her little granddaughter. She explains that even though Jin-ho is her biological father, he has lost the right to be in her life, and she asks the girl to call In-ha dad from now on. The little girl isn't sad at all. In fact, she's thrilled because she knows just how much Daddy In-ha loves her. In the blink of an eye, the big day arrives. At their stunning wedding ceremony, Hee-soo promises In-ha that she will be the best wife he could ever ask for. Under the joyful gaze of their friends and family, the two of them walk down the aisle together. And that brings our story to a close. Hee-soo has found her true love and her true family, while Jin-ho is left to face an endless cycle of regret behind bars. As for the manipulative Si-jong, she's locked away in prison too, right where she belongs. In the end, the good are rewarded, and the wicked finally pay the price. Thanks for watching.